welcome to this demo presentation. My name is Fredrik Kronblad, and in this video we will talk about incremental search and, most importantly, of instructional dialog. The concept that we're working around is sourdough baking, and we call it sourdough for dummies. So the background is that we have this persona, Sebastian, a beginner baker, and he wants to learn from the best to make delicious sourdough bread. And to help him, we've taken a couple of recipes for basic sourdough baking and transformed them into instructional dialog, using the built-in support in TDM for this kind of dialog. So let's give a live demo of what that can look like.
Okay, let's start. What do you want to bake today?
I'd like to search for a recipe.
What type of recipe are you looking for? Normal bread, sweet bread, or rolled in doughs?
Normal bread.
What type of grain are you looking for? Wheat, rye, or mixed?
Mixed.
What recipe would you like? Sourdough starter or standard sourdough bread?
The basic sourdough bread.
Do you want to receive instructions on how to prepare standard sourdough bread?
Yes.
Okay, first, prepare new sourdough or freshen up your sourdough so that you have 150 to 200 grams of active sourdough.
How do I do that?
Okay, do you want to prepare a sourdough from scratch, or do you have a sourdough starter that you want to freshen up?
I'd like to start from scratch.
Okay, first, heat 2 deciliters of water to 40 degrees.
Okay, the water is heated.
Then, pour the water into a bowl.
How do I do that?
Unfortunately, I don't have the instructions on that.
How much water do I need?
You need 200 grams of water. Then, pour the water into a bowl.
Okay, that's done.
Okay, next, whisk in about 1 deciliter of flour. The flour can be a little different, but it is good if there is rye flour in it, and that some of the flour is whole grain.
That's done.
Okay, whisk in more flour until the sourdough has a consistency somewhere between the waffle batter and the pancake batter.
That's done.
Okay, next, cover the sourdough with a baking towel or with a lid.
I've covered the dough.
Then, place the sourdough in a warm place, about 25 degrees. It can be on a water heater, on the floor if you have underfloor heating, or in a switched-off oven with the oven lamp on.
Okay, that is done.
Then, place the sourdough in a warm place,
It's done.
Okay, finally, let the sourdough rest for about 8 to 12 hours.
Okay, it's done.
Your sourdough is ready. It should be bubbly and active now. You may use it for making a dough directly.
Okay.
Okay, you now have 150 to 200 grams of sourdough.
Good.
Returning to the sourdough bread, heat 500 grams of water to 40 degrees centigrade.
How much water?
You need 500 grams of water.
Okay, so that was the live demo. Now let's get back to the presentation. So what we saw here was instructional dialog, including adaptivity. And in the beginning we saw incremental search. So let's start with the instructional dialog. So we had a dialog that consisted of a number of instructions, and then the user, in this case me, I responded to these tasks by saying that I'd carried out the actions, like I've heated the water, specific to this task. Or I said, that's done. Another thing that I did was to ask, how do I do that? So this having this feature gives the developer the possibility to give instructions on a really high level while providing more detailed support for less experienced users. Like, for instance, the formulation in the recipe for the sourdough bread is that you should prepare new sourdough or freshen up your sourdough so that you have 150 to 200 grams of active sourdough. And for an experienced baker, that's something that you just do. Okay, I should have 150 to 200 grams of active sourdough. But for a beginner baker, like in this case Sebastian, he doesn't know how to do that. So he asks, how do I do that? And then he gets a question if he wants to prepare the sourdough from scratch, or if you have a sourdough starter that you want to freshen up. And so this gives, as I said, the developer an opportunity to give high-level instructions for those who need that, but still providing the options for people who need more information to get that kind of information. And then I asked the same thing for when I got the instruction to pour the water into a bowl, and I got the information that the system doesn't have instructions on how to pour water into a bowl. Of course, you could imagine like a help for complete beginners in the kitchen, where they actually describe with a movie clip or with instructions or pictures or whatever that you should bring out the bowl, and then you should take the water and pour it into the bowl. But in this context, this is something which is expected from the user to know these things. In the beginning, we had this incremental search for recipes. So we used two features there. So each of the recipes are tagged with what kind of recipe it is. Is it normal bread? Is it sweet bread? Or is it rolled in doughs? And we also had this feature of the grain type. Is it wheat? Is it rye? Is it mixed flour? And you could use as many of these features as you like, but in this concept we only use two. So what kind of recipe are you looking for? Normal bread. What kind of grain did you have in mind? Mixed. And then it gave me a selection of recipes matching these criteria. And this is built into TDM. You specify the features, you specify in what order they should be asked, and then the rest just happens. So when is this technology applicable? Well, for technical support, like when you're calling for support for your fiber modem to get the standard support, basically. For recipes, not just sourdough, but for any recipes. You can imagine instructions for cooking where the system says, well, now you do red wine reduction. And some of the cooks, they get this. Some of the cooks, they ask, how do I do that? And get the detailed instructions. You could use it for car manuals, for like exchanging light bulbs, or exploring the functionality of your new car, or whatever. And you could also imagine that you use this for people working with technical installations, like support for telecom companies. So how do I exchange the R350 board for the blah 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 radio base station? Well, you do it like this and like that. Thank you for your attention. That's all I wanted to share with you today. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And for more information about the next generation of conversation, you should check out Talkamatic.se. So thanks for your attention. Bye.
Talkamatic, at your service.